Tonight, a drowning tragedy on our south coast. One person dead, another missing.
Australian teenagers accused of plotting a terror attack on Anzac Day.
Baby buzz returns to Buckingham Palace. The royal arrival just days away.
And a Derby Day honour for an Eagles great, but Freo firm as short-priced favourites.
From the studios of 7 Perth, Samantha Jolly and Blake Johnson.
Good evening. There's been a drowning tragedy on our south coast. One person is dead and another has been missing since this morning. The cousins were washed off rocks while fishing at salmon holes near Albany. It is a well-known fishing spot, but it's also a place known to be dangerous. Monique Dirks reports.
Tethered rope on the rocks at salmon holes. The two men had tied themselves together, the rope then tied around a rock. But it couldn't withstand the 5-metre swell crashing onto the popular fishing spot. The rope snapped and at 7 o'clock this morning the two men were washed into the ocean.
This spot here would have to be one of the worst spots for people to fish off. I just think they're crazy.
Police say the two men were cousins. Their fathers were watching them fish from the beach when they were washed from the rocks. One man's body was located a short time later, the 11th person to drown at salmon holes in 3 decades. There's been an intense search today for the second man, with concern mounting as every minute ticked by. 12 years ago, after the death of 15-year-old Nathan Drew at Salmon Holes, his family campaigned for safety equipment. In 2013, anchor points were installed at the rocks and life jackets made available for free at the deli on the way to Salmon Holes. Police have told 7 News the two cousins today were not wearing life jackets. The people who live around here are so concerned about safety, they want Salmon Holes closed for fishing.
My personal opinion is close the rock. And if you go on the rock, get fined.
Monique Dirks is in Albany. Monique, do police hold much hope the second fisherman could still be alive?
Good evening, Blake. Well, sadly, hopes are fading that the man will be found alive. And because it's getting very dark and very cold here tonight, the search has been called off. Sea Rescue and police have searched every inch of salmon holes for 11 hours today. Sometimes their boats were battling swells up to 7 metres. They have recovered the man's fishing rod, but sadly, there's been no sign of him. Sea Rescue volunteers tell me it's no longer being treated as a rescue operation, but sadly, rather a recovery effort. Authorities have been advising people not to fish off the rocks or the beach tonight because the conditions are simply too dangerous, but at this point the beach remains open. The sea rescue teams have left salmon holes for tonight, but they will be back to search for the man at first light tomorrow. Sam.
Thanks, Monique. Police believe they foiled an Anzac Day terror plot with the arrest of 5 teenagers in Melbourne. Tonight, 2 teenagers remain in custody. And with big crowds expected for the Anzac Day centenary, the raids could prompt a review of security.
He is 18, grew up in Australia, was schooled here and is accused of wanting to kill Australians in Australia on its most sacred day. Sevded Besim is one of 5 young men arrested in raids in southeast Melbourne.
It will be alleged that these attacks were planned to take place on Anzac Day.
We're undertaking preparations and planning for terrorist acts in Melbourne, which included targeting police officers.
With knives and swords, it's alleged. Outside Bessim's home, signs of a brutal 3:30 a.m. wake-up call that one source has told 7 News scared the hell out of him. And a constant stream of family and friends, all wearing hoodies, none wanting to say a thing.
Is there anything you can say about your family?
I only know them as good neighbours, I just thought that they were.
The 5 worshipped with Newman Haider, shot dead last September as he tried to murder counter-terrorism police officers.
These people have been on our radar, but particularly over the late last month, then the investigation ramped up and it became very obvious to us that their plans were specific.
Specifically, attacks at dawn services, potentially at Melbourne's Shrine of Remembrance.
People should turn up at Anzac Day events in the largest possible numbers. And the best thing you can do in the face of those who would do us harm is live your life normally.
Bessem's online profile shows a dramatic shift. Early last year, he was photographed with comedian Shane Jacobson. But last month, the teenager posted a hateful speech by an Al-Qaeda leader and images calling for jihad against the West. Security will be increased around the country next weekend for the Anzac centenary. At Anzac Cove, there are already plans for 4,000 police and soldiers. Turkey borders Syria and Iraq. The numbers are ominous. 30 Australians have been killed there in combat, 100 passports have been cancelled, a further 100 Australians are already in the war zone, 150 are offering financial support, and ASIO has prioritised 400 investigations into high-risk cases.
These are not matters of faith, they're not matters of culture. They're wrong, they're reprehensible, they're evil.
More arrests have not been ruled out. Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
3 men are in hospital tonight after an explosion in Innaloo. Jeff Parry is there. Jeff, do we know what happened?
Well, Blake, it appears to be the result of a bit of misadventure. The 3 men were in the yard of this house in Manila Street in Innaloo. They were firing up the barbecue and they were planning to eat before they went to a concert. Lee Schneider, who knows all of those 3 men, arrived after the explosion, and he tells me that one of the injured men had squirted methylated spirits onto the flames, and that had caused the explosion. Natasha Brooks was next door.
And we heard screaming or yelling or something like that from this house, because we thought it was from there, and then we saw the ambulances come, 3 of them.
Now, Mr Schneider told me that he and a mate put the 3 injured men under the running water of a shower until the ambulance arrived. One of them had quite bad facial burns. They've been taken to the burns unit at Fiona Stanley Hospital, and the hospital tells us that the condition of all 3 men is stable. Sam?
Thanks, Jeff. A woman's been killed in a crash in Perth's southwest. She was riding a scooter that collided with a cement truck at an intersection in Beaconsfield just after 1 o'clock. Police spent the afternoon speaking with the truck driver and are appealing for any witnesses to come forward. No charges have been laid.
A jury took just an hour to convict an American teenager of murdering Australian baseball player Christopher Lane. It was only after he was sentenced to life behind bars the killer finally showed remorse, but it was little comfort to the Lane family.
Chris Lane's killer will never step foot outside prison again, but the Lane family's grief will endure.
It doesn't change the fact we don't take Chris home. It doesn't change the fact of what happened.
Such a senseless loss. Such a senseless loss. And this naughty boy, he's now never going to do this to any other family.
Chancey Luna showed little emotion through the trial, ignoring graphic evidence and sobs from the courtroom. It was only as the 17-year-old was handcuffed and shackled and led down a narrow corridor to meet his fate, he finally showed some remorse.
Have you got a message for the Lanes? This is your chance to say sorry.
I'm sorry.
His mother is heartbroken.
Now my heart is black and I don't care no more. I don't care about nobody. I don't care about them. I don't care. They took my son. My son was 16 years old. It was not meant to be. My son is not a killer.
But in just over an hour, the jury agreed when Luna shot Chris Lane in the back while he was out jogging. It was no accident. It was cold-blooded murder. The Lanes have listened to harrowing testimony. They watched video of the 22-year-old, full of life, jogging along the road just before he was shot. They saw the bloody Redlands baseball shirt he was wearing.
We still have his second bedroom full of all his clothes still hanging, and we still call it Christopher's room because, you know, as Andrew said, every day we feel this loss and we just love him so much.
In their darkest moments, Chris Lane's parents question whether they should have let him move to America to play baseball. But in their hearts, they're happy he followed his dream and have nothing but praise for the place he called home and where he found love. His girlfriend of 4 years, Sarah Harper, and her family now considered part of theirs. In Duncan, Oklahoma, Angela Cox, 7 News.
The whereabouts of missing prospector Jenny Kellett remains a mystery, a day after police confirmed remains found in an old mine shaft were her husband's. Police won't say how they think Raymond Keith Kellett died. A search for Jenny Kellett may now resume a month after the couple went missing near Sandstone in the Goldfields.
A Perth cyclist says jealousy is behind the attitude some motorists show to cyclists, and it's causing serious injury and sometimes death. Les Del Paso wants police to do more to pull up drivers who get too close. He spoke to Jeff Parry.
Les Del Paso rides 6 days a week and covers about 280 kilometres, and he says he knows the road rules.
I stop at red lights, I stop at give way signs, I give way to the right, I keep left as much as possible.
But he says life on the roads for cyclists is becoming more dangerous because of motorist attitudes.
3 times now I've cheered at the kitchen table that I made it home alive.
For some time, Les has been recording his close calls with buses, cars and trucks. This is what riders call a punishment pass, where a vehicle cuts in on the cyclist. Les says punishment passes are common and judges that 20% of motorists have no regard for cyclists who share the roads. Here, he nearly gets wiped out by a fuel tanker's back wheels. And in another instance, a driver blasts his horn, then cuts into the lane and slows down unnecessarily.
I've got a camera on you. I've got you on camera.
A camera front and back.
Invaluable to me because it's a record, but it means nothing with the police, which I just don't understand. I mean, I can't believe that I go to the police with stuff and they make me feel like a criminal. Mr Del Paso reckons some drivers' attitudes to cyclists are the result of jealousy. Jealousy? Because I've got freedom.
Jeff Parry, 7 News.
It was a sad farewell today for 3 children who drowned when the family's car ploughed into a Melbourne lake. Their 5-year-old sister and mother survived the crash and were today part of a community in mourning.
It was a tragedy which touched the lives of many, and today it was time to say goodbye to 3 little angels. Four-year-old twins Anger and Madit entered the world together and left together.
Anger is a sweetheart, the most beautiful soul.
And of her cheeky other half, Madit.
When you opened the door, the first joy you felt is of a young, energetic boy running into your arms.
They've now been laid to rest in Werribee with their baby brother Bol as detectives try to unravel the mystery of what went wrong. 10 days have passed since a car they were travelling in with their mother, Akon God, plunged into a Wyndham Vale lake. 5-year-old Awol was a tough little survivor. Family thanked emergency services. Some were there to pay their respects. While the family lost 3 little treasures, one was brought back to them. She's now recovered and safe in the arms of loved ones. Christy Cooper, 7 News.
Royal baby fever has taken hold in London, with Kate and William's second child due any day now. Some eager fans are already camped outside St Mary's Hospital, waiting to catch a glimpse of the Duchess of Cambridge.
Outside London's St Mary's Hospital, loyal royalists are waiting and watching. Mother and daughter Maria and Amy have been here every day for 2 weeks. They live 5 hours drive away near the Scottish border.
Hearing the news last time was... the atmosphere was just electric. It was brilliant.
You cried, didn't you?
I cried when they came out as well.
Yeah, she burst into tears when they brought George out.
The maternity suite inside the Lindo wing is waiting for the Duchess of Cambridge to return. This time it's described as a special event expected before April 30 as the world's media and self-proclaimed royal superfans prepare.
It's either got to be a sister or a brother, and they can share toys with each other.
William and Kate claim not to know the gender of their new baby, but some people think they do. One English woman has bet nearly 4,000 Australian dollars that the new royal will be a princess named Alice. It's a name with royal pedigree. Alice, the Duchess of Gloucester, was the Queen's aunt. She died in 2004, aged 102. Prince Philip's mother was Princess Alice of Battenberg. Expect singing in the streets.
You be me sunshine. It's a girl, it's a girl, it's a girl. And if it's a boy, congratulations.
Prince or princess, they'll be celebrating.
La 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 la. It's a boy, it's a boy.
In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
Tourists jailed over a Quokka attack. Those details next.
Plus, remember when Perth was dubbed Dullsville? We catch up with the expert who put Perth on the map for the wrong reasons.
And Foreign Minister Julie Bishop on a very rare overseas trip.
On Weekend Sunrise, the twin strangers. How can two unrelated people share the same face? They'll explain all on Weekend Sunrise from 7 a.m. on 7.
A warning ahead of our next report. We'll spare you the worst of the pictures captured on a mobile phone by a French tourist who set fire to a quokka at Rottnest. The man and his cousin are about to spend their second night in jail for singeing the quokka using a lighter and an aerosol can. They were fined $4,000 each, but are behind bars until they pay. The quokka wasn't badly hurt.
WA's Julie Bishop has arrived for one of her most watched visits since taking the job of Foreign Minister. She's in the conservative Muslim state of Iran, meeting the President and Foreign Minister in an effort to improve relations with the West.
A rare guest from the West turns up with one hell of a hat.
Good morning.
Julie Bishop arrives in deeply conservative Iran, where it's law for women to wear head coverings in public.
I wear scarves and hats and headgear quite often.
Hat or not, this is one of the last capitals on earth where you'd expect to see a senior government figure from a close US ally.
I have kept the United States informed of my intention to visit here, and they are supportive of it.
What's softening 36 years of fierce hatred forged in the Islamic Revolution and US hostage crisis? Shared interests. The US and Iran are both backing the fight against Islamic State in neighbouring Iraq. Julie Bishop entered talks with President Rouhani, his foreign minister and a senior military leader, determined to calm them about Australia's growing troop numbers there.
That our role is non-combat, that we are there in a military training capacity.
Discussed too the emerging deal to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions in return for an end to economic sanctions. President Rouhani has his own take on a phrase familiar to Australians. Iran, he says, is open for business. 80 million people, underdeveloped, huge oil and gas reserves. If Iran really is opening up, the Abbott government wants a part of that business. Julie Bishop warns the thaw in Iran relations is incremental, yet her invitation here suggests if the change is on, Australia has an early foothold. In Tehran, Tim Lester, 7 News.
A sacked colleague of a Perth Conservationist killed in an axe attack in Zimbabwe has been charged with murder. Conservation worker Greg Gibbard was killed last week. Xmas Mpofu, who was fired last year, has been charged by Zimbabwe police.
It's still very difficult due to the fact that I was very close to the suspect, and it's someone that I trained. And that's one of the hardest things to deal with, that we were so close.
The victim and the accused were friends and colleagues for more than a decade.
Islamic State has claimed responsibility for a car bomb targeting the US consulate in the northern Iraq city of Erbil. Security personnel fired at the car as it approached the gates before those inside detonated explosives. 3 people were killed, but no consular staff were injured. It came just hours after a series of deadly blasts in the capital, Baghdad. At least 40 people were killed in the bombings, which targeted busy public places.
Charles Landry might not be a household name, but he caused a big stir when he visited our city 8 years ago. The experienced and sought-after urban planner claimed Perth wasn't doing enough to shake its Dullsville tag that we say no too often. Charles Landry returned to Perth this week, and I invited him to see how our city has changed. Charles Landry, back in the city he criticised in 2007. He bagged the convention centre, said the city didn't connect with the river, that we'd lacked imagination, atmosphere. A lot's changed since then.
You're a fan of Gough Whitlam? Oh, is that Gough? I think it is.
Charles is in town to give our city a check-up.
I was being provocative on purpose because I felt that it just needed waking up, Perth.
Are we awake?
I think you are awake. What's immediately visible, both physically and also you can feel it, is there is a change of atmosphere and mood.
Charles Landry agreed to walk the streets with 7 News, past huge developments, the City Link, Perth Arena, and through smaller ones, revitalised laneways like Wolf Lane. Charles says they're a huge reason the city feels more alive.
They're absolutely vital. Of course, it took a hell of a long time to persuade people that this is more important than putting lots of sort of soulless places somewhere else.
Charles Landry's given planning advice to companies and governments across the world.
The job I do is being incredibly nosy. That's what you've got to do. You've got to be incredibly inquisitive, sniff around.
He likes Yagan Square inside the Horseshoe Bridge.
This feels sort of at a human scale.
But says new skyscrapers in the City Link are a little imposing.
And this one is sort of overhanging. So again, you sort of feel, oh, is it going to fall on me?
Perth Arena doesn't get used enough in Charles Landry's opinion. He's a huge fan of Elizabeth Quay if this vision becomes reality.
I think although it's got lots of high buildings and all of that, that's going to feel quite dramatic, especially with the water and so on, and that could be quite powerful.
I ask about the cost of going out these days.
What do we do about making Perth less expensive?
That, Christ, is that a problem?
Charles Landry reckons fast-growing cities around the world have the same problem and suggests some prices should be regulated. But overall, we're doing okay. Charles says we've loosened up, but we shouldn't stop pushing for change. As for that nickname...
Dullsville, question mark.
Not anymore, according to this man. And thanks to Charles Landry for his time. Saturday Sport now with Adrian Barrett and Barrett. Who wins the Derby?
Well, Blake, it could be a lot closer than some predict. That's next, as Nat Fyfe opens up about taggers. What does the Dockers superstar think about facing up to Matt Rosa?
Try not to whack him.
And WA's newest surfing sensation bows out at the Margaret River Pro. Another reason to scream for their team in tomorrow's big derby, with favourite son Beau Waters to be honoured at the match. The tactical battle between Ross Lyon and Adam Simpson sure to be another highlight, as Nat Fyfe reveals he's working on not reacting to the West Coast taggers.
Matt Rosa harassed Carlton star Chris Judd last week until his former teammate lashed out. If this forearm had landed, Judd could have been suspended. Nat Fyfe knows the same thing could happen to him tomorrow, and retaliating could cost him a Brownlow medal. His new rule, not to overreact.
Try not to whack him, it's the first thing. But no, it's just like any other challenge.
Fyfe admits he studied the Eagles last weekend and paid particular attention to what Rosa did to Judd.
Yeah, watched them. I thought Matt did a fantastic job. Whoever they choose to go to, we have to offer some support to, but it'll pose a significant challenge for that individual.
But tagging Fyfe will be tougher than tagging Judd. Fyfe is heavier, taller and younger. The Dockers superstar brushed off 4 cats last weekend to kick one of the goals of the season.
Speaking of all-time greats, what a goal! How good is he?
That was great. I think that's a bit of a fluke more than anything, but yeah, it felt nice.
And such is Fremantle's depth that Tendai Mzungu is yet to play this season, turning out for Peel Thunder again today.
Yeah, obviously love to be playing tomorrow, but the guys who to come here today and the boys putting that sort of effort over 4 quarters, you know, you love playing with guys who give in the effort. So today, yeah, real thrilled that we got the result.
Max Duffy and Jack Hanneth were not playing though, on standby for a late change in the Derby. 40,000 expected for tomorrow's big clash, with retiring Eagle Beau Waters to do a lap of honour at half-time.
Yeah, good luck to Bowie. The pressure continues to mount on Mick Malthouse as the winless Carlton were beaten again today. The Blues went down to arch-rivals Essendon by 21 points, while Adelaide held off Melbourne to stay undefeated also, and Sydney beat GWS in the Battle of the Bridge.
It's no secret the Bombers and Blues don't like each other.
It's hard to defend what Chris Yarran has just done.
Chris Yarran landed the first blow. The Bombers took over from there.
That finish is just superb.
Trailing by 41 points with 15 minutes to go, the Blues suddenly kicked into gear. They kicked the next 4 goals.
It's not game over yet.
But they left it too late. The Bombers steadied, then finished them off.
The Blues still alive, only just. Now they're dead.
Adelaide kept their dream start under Phil Walsh on track. Teenager Cam Ellis-Yeoman with a goal of the year contender.
And lets it go to full forward. Eddie will watch, we'll all watch. We'll all stand and applaud that.
Jeremy Howe went for mark of the year instead.
Sloan and unlikely. Target Howe!
Some can do it and some can't, Jace.
In the Battle of the Bridge, 18-year-old Isaac Heaney continued to play like a 200-game veteran.
And he nails it. How good is this kid?
But he was just being Buddy.
He goes for home and brings the house down.
He finished with 5. This one put the icing on the cake.
That's gone the other way.
He's out of the jungle.
Heaney had 4 of his own and showed just how tough he is, actually playing on after ramming into the post.
Got the kick away, now the goal, took himself out. Oh, that hurts.
Isn't he wrapped around that goal post?
Ryan Daniels, 7 News.
And in the local league today, as mentioned, Peel upset East Perth while Perth beat Claremont. Well done, Demons. Plus, East Fremantle defeated Swan Districts and Subiaco thrashed South Fremantle. WA giant killer Jay Davies met his match at the Margaret River Pro today, beaten in the quarterfinals by Hawaiian John Florence. Another casualty was 11-time world champ Kelly Slater, but local hope Taj Burrow is through to the semis.
Jay Davies had disposed of 3-time world champion Mick Fanning and current champ Gabriel Medina to get this far. But in today's quarter-finals, the yelling-up surfer met his match in Hawaiian John Florence. The wildcard reached the last 8 with a masterful ride against Frenchman Jeremy Flores earlier in the day.
Oh, look at the size of this thing as he drives through that barrel, comes flying out of the end.
The 28-year-old admits he remained grounded as he rode a surfing fairy tale, except for a touch of nerves.
Usually feel comfortable out of Margaret's, but just the last few heats I've had some jitters. I've just been hanging out with all my mates. And like my brother and another few friends of mine have just been keeping it really chilled.
While Davies departed the tournament, fellow West Aussie Taj Burrow remained, advancing to the semi-finals, and says he's loving the big surf.
It's actually really fun. It's such a sick wave for big open-face turns.
But 11-time world champion Kelly Slater was dumped out of the contest, losing to Brazil's Adriano de Souza. Peter Vlahos, 7 News.
A supporter group has threatened to boycott the Glory's final home game. It comes after the Glory were found guilty of salary cap breaches and thrown out of the A-League finals. But coach Kenny Lowe is urging the fans to turn out tomorrow.
It would be wonderful if the fans show their class, because they've got class. They've had it all year. Show their class and support these boys.
Looking to motivate their demoralised players, the Glory invited AFL legend Kevin Sheedy to speak to them today.
I reckon they've copped the harsh penalty personally. And it's quite amazing. Just wonder whether anybody from Sydney who hands out the judgments would have ever come to Perth and really, talk to them face to face.
They didn't. Nico Rosberg has bragging rights over Mercedes teammate Lewis Hamilton after posting the fastest time during practice at the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Lewis Hamilton's had a brilliant start to the season, but his biggest threat might come from teammate Nico Rosberg. The German setting the fastest time in practice. Aussie Daniel Ricciardo was 6th quickest. Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal will face off in the semi-finals of the Monte Carlo Masters. Djokovic dropped just 3 games in his win over Marin Cilic, while Nadal beat fellow Spaniard David Ferrer in 3 sets. Later tonight, Sam Stosur will lead Australia against the Netherlands in the Fed Cup. The tie is live and free on 7-2 from 7:30. And why go to the zoo when you can go to the golf instead? All creatures great and small roamed around the Hilton Head course in South Carolina, and there were plenty of birdies in Jordan Spieth's round 2. The US Masters champion shot a flawless 9 under 62. Ryan Daniels, 7 News.
And our Derby coverage starts at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, live and free right here on 7. That's Saturday Sport. Now here are Blake and Sam.
Thanks, Barry. This is an hour edition of 7 News.
Still to come, a fireball in California. 15 people injured when a worker accidentally hits a gas pipe.
And how a special gift forged a wartime friendship.
More speed cameras than ever before, so if you do speed, you will get caught. We want everyone to be safe on our roads.
You're watching 7 News. Let's return to Albany now and the fishing tragedy off our south coast. Monique Dirks is there. Monique, at least one man is dead. Any sign of the second fisherman?
Good evening, Blake. There's been no sign. One man is still missing tonight, almost 12 hours after he was washed off rocks here at Salmon Holes. He was tied to the same rope as his cousin fishing for salmon here this morning when a wave crashed onto the rocks. The force of that wave was so great it snapped the rope. The other man's body was found a short time later along with their fishing gear. Sea rescue volunteers have been tirelessly searching for the second man, but tell me it's now sadly moved from a rescue to a recovery mission. It's pitch black and very cold here at Salmon Holes, so the rescue operation has been called off for tonight, but rescue teams will be back here at first light tomorrow to search for the man. Sam.
Thanks, Monique. A natural gas line exploded at a gun range in California, injuring at least 15 people. A construction worker accidentally struck the 12-inch pipe with a backhoe, unleashing a massive fireball. Stunned onlookers filmed the flames from their cars before roads in the area were shut down. Most of those hurt in the blast were from a jail inmate crew working in the area.
A memorial service has been held in Germany for the victims of the Germanwings plane that crashed into a French mountain last month. Candles were lit, one each for the people on board the doomed flight. Authorities believe co-pilot Andreas Lubitz deliberately crashed the plane after locking the pilot out of the cockpit. Now to an extraordinary story of two Gallipoli enemies from Australia and Turkey who went from fighting each other to becoming mates and leading their nations. It led to Australia showing Turkey surprising generosity, an act forever remembered with a little gold case.
It's heritage that must be handled with care.
It's so beautiful.
With significance beyond its size and value beyond its precious metal.
I think it contains 100 years of history in a sense.
The gold cigarette case was a gift from Turkish President Mustafa Kemal Ataturk to former Australian Prime Minister Stanley Melbourne Bruce, men of shared destiny that began at Gallipoli.
He signed up almost immediately after the beginning of the war.
Serving in the British Army, Stanley Bruce was twice wounded and decorated for bravery. Kemal Ataturk was the enemy.
He was a commander in Gallipoli. He was the commander of the 57th Regiment who stopped the Anzacs when they landed.
The war hero would lead his country's fight for independence and become Turkey's first president in 1923. The same year, Bruce became Australia's 8th Prime Minister.
He was an extraordinary international statesman in the 1930s.
The two crossed paths again in 1936 when Bruce chaired the negotiations that gave Turkey back control of the Dardanelles Straits. In gratitude, President Kemal Ataturk sent him this.
For you, holding something that Ataturk handled and signed, what's that like?
I can't find words to explain it.
Stanley Melbourne Bruce had no children, so this case passed to the National Archives. This treasure that meant so much to him now belongs to all of us. A small, heartfelt gift that's come to symbolise how two former enemies at Gallipoli became good friends in peace, as did their nations.
Two old soldiers showing the way to peace. Paul Caddock, 7 News.
As the centenary of Anzac Day approaches, RSL Life Care has launched a campaign to solve the homeless crisis facing 3,000 Australian war veterans. The 100 for 100 campaign is asking people to donate $100 to help find homes for an initial 200 veterans.
Homelessness is just a symptom of poor mental health and lack of support. We need to remember that we send people to war as a nation, and as a nation we have an obligation to look after them.
If you'd like to help, the details are on the 7 News Perth Facebook page.
They say don't work with children or animals. This next video has both. A gorilla gave a little girl the fright of her life at an American zoo. She was beating her chest, trying to attract the ape's attention when the massive animal charged.
Oh, man.
Adult silverbacks can weigh as much as 180 kilos. This one cracked the glass.
Stay with us on 7. The Saturday lotto draw is still to come.
Plus a scare for a Perth driver, a close call on Tonkin Highway. See what happens next.
And a new blood test to catch breast cancer early.
It's 40 years since the Khmer Rouge and its genocidal leader Pol Pot forced an American-backed government out of Cambodia. One of the worst atrocities of the 20th century followed. As many as 3 million people died during the genocide, and the wounds still run deep.
Yuk Chang was just 14 when Pol Pot's tanks rolled down Norodom Boulevard 40 years ago.
When the bomb shell, the tree would shake up and fall on the floor. Let me show you like this. You see? Then we call it snow.
In April 1975, as the world focused on the inevitable fall of Saigon and the end of the Vietnam War, Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge captured Phnom Penh, declared Year Zero and started a despicable reign of genocidal terror.
When I think about my childhood at the age of 14, which I lost, that's still with me today, that I cannot forgive.
Cambodia's entire population was sent to labour camps. Pan Porn was just 23. He escaped, was jailed and tortured, and escaped again to the Thai border. They would kill people for the smallest mistake, he says, and that's why we are still suffering today. The brutality of the regime hit Australia in 1978, when 2 yachtsmen from Sydney and Perth strayed into Cambodian waters. David Scott and Ron Dean's Asian sailing adventure turned into a nightmare when they were captured off the coast of Cambodia by the Khmer Rouge Navy and brought here to the notorious S-21 prison. They were tortured into confessing they were spies for the CIA and then brutally murdered. Just 2 weeks ago, a United Nations tribunal charged their captors with crimes against humanity. Australia has had a big hand in the post-apocalyptic rebuilding of this nation, successfully leading the UN peacekeeping operation in 1992 and 1993 and sponsoring the peacekeeping plan. Yuk Chang has dedicated his life to documenting the period and has commissioned architect Zaha Hadid to design and build an institute of remembrance and justice.
So this would be for not just for Cambodia, but bring Cambodia to the region, also to the globe, also representing the commitment in Asia for genocide prevention.
In Phnom Penh, Craig Leeson, 7 News.
A drive down Tonkin Highway scored a Perth cabbie some free modifications to his vehicle that he probably didn't want. Watch as a tyre falls off the truck in front and heads straight for him. The big tyre appears to have been sitting on the tray of the truck and probably gave the cabbie quite a scare. Here's the damage to his taxi's roof.
A blood test is being developed that could detect early signs of breast cancer more effectively than mammograms. Researchers say the cancer could be predicted up to 5 years before the disease occurs, but some experts are worried it could cause unnecessary panic.
Dawn Pritchard's been clear of breast cancer for more than 10 years, but it's an experience she can't forget.
It was pretty hard. My son was 4 and my daughter was 2. It's scary to think that you may not see them go to school.
A dark cloud now hangs over her teenage daughter, Kelly.
It's always going to be in the back of your mind every day, knowing that there is a chance you will get it.
For those who want to know sooner rather than later, a blood test is being developed in Denmark. So far, clinical studies have found it can predict breast cancer within 2 to 5 years before it develops.
What they were looking for were chemical signatures combined with all this dietary and lifestyle information that would say that particular woman is more likely to get breast cancer.
This could be particularly groundbreaking for younger women because mammograms aren't recommended to those under the age of 40, and early detection significantly increases the chance of survival. It's also unlike a mammogram, which is only effective once the disease is present. But the concern is knowing so far in advance could do more harm than good.
It may cause her to leave her work, it may cause her to have both her breasts off, it may stop her sleeping at night.
I think I'd be better prepared.
Doctors say further studies are needed and it could be at least 10 years before it's approved. Jessica Dietrich, 7 News.
Stay with us on 7 News.
All the details for Sunday's weather and the start of the week, that's straight ahead.
Now, Fuel Watch, Perth's petrol prices, brought to you by Fuel Watch and 7 News.
Taking a look at the weather now, we had a cool night. We got down to 9.3 degrees, blue skies and a top of 27 this afternoon. On the chart, the remnants of a weak cold front lie near the south coast. A large high pressure system is south of the state and that's slowly moving east. Taking a look across WA, stormy for Broome, 34 the top, a sunny 30 in Geraldton and 26 the max in Bunbury. On the east coast, wet weather in most states, showers and 22 in Sydney, a possible late storm in Brisbane and a cloudy 17 in Adelaide. On the water, winds will start out east to northeast, shift variable, then easterly by the evening. Seas 1.5, the swell 2.5. Taking a look at the forecast, it's going to be sunny for tomorrow's Western Derby with light winds by the afternoon, a top of 27 degrees after an overnight low of 15. Monday sunny and 28, the same for Tuesday, and staying clear 27 Wednesday, 26 Thursday and 25 Friday and Saturday. And now it's time for Saturday Lotto. Good luck.
Get your tickets ready. It's time for the Saturday Lotto Draw. Give luck a chance.
Good evening, everyone. Liz Cantor here, and welcome to tonight's Saturday Lotto Draw number 3521. Here with me are our draw officials and government supervisor. The total prize pool for tonight's draw is over $15 million. Wishing you the best of luck. The first numbers down are 27 and 14. The total Division 1 prize pool for tonight is over $4 million. And to win, you'll need to match all 6 numbers. Next out of the barrel is 18, and there's number 16. Last week we had 13 lucky Division 1 winners who each picked up more than $300,000 in the Saturday Lotto draw. 26 was next, and there's 4. Our first supplementary tonight is ball number 10. Let's recap the numbers. They are 27, 14, 18, 16, 26, 4, and our supplementaries are 10 and 5. Don't forget that next Thursday's Powerball is $3 million. Don't miss out. Grab yourself a ticket from your local Lotto outlet. Congratulations to all of our winners from tonight, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Awesome Festival is all about getting creative. If you want to know more about Lottery West grants, then go to the website.
Before we go, police in Brussels were hot on the tail of a rather unusual group of jailbreakers. A trio of zebras trotted downtown after escaping from a local ranch in the Belgian capital. They gave motorists a fright, but they did try to cross at a zebra crossing. Locals were delighted, and online it's of course been called Zebragate. The mischievous beasts ran wild for a whole hour before handlers recaptured them. The Western Derby is live and free on 7 tomorrow afternoon from 2:30.
We'll have updates during the evening. Next on 7 is our family movie, Tangled.